What's good, Hoop fans? After a wild NBA trade deadline that saw a record 63 players moved across the league, 5 teams stood still: Portland, Orlando, Brooklyn, Denver, and Minnesota. While others scrambled for last-minute deals, these teams sat back and watched. But was that the right move?
Lucy, you got some explaining to do.
Let's break it all down. All right, let's start with the Portland Trail Blazers. A team that somehow has won 10 of their last 12 games, and yet they're stuck in 13th place in the West. Now I get it, rebuilds are tricky, but Portland is playing it way too safe. Jerami Grant, DeAndre Ayton, Robert Williams III, these are veterans taking up space when this team should be all in on developing young guys like Scoot Henderson, Shaedon Sharpe, and Donovan Clingan. Let's keep it real. Portland's plan is confusing. They didn't commit to contending, but they didn't fully commit to tanking either. So what's the end game here? Why didn't they move Grant or Simons for draft capital? Even crazier, Portland's been a top 3 defense since January 1st. Only the Thunder and Clippers are better. But is that real or just a hot streak? GM Joe Cronin says they didn't find the value in making trades, but is that a smart move or just indecisiveness? I don't know, man. This all feels way too cautious. One-word verdict.
Now, Mr. Murdo may find that bizarre.
Let's travel to Central Florida. The Orlando Magic sat on their hands at the deadline again. But here's the thing, this was the right move. They're playing the long game. They've got a core of Paolo Banchero, Franz Wagner, and Jalen Suggs. They're young, talented, and building chemistry. Even with injuries and a mid-tier offense, they know their window is just opening. The front office resisted panic moves, even though they easily could have gone shopping for offensive firepower. Instead, they're keeping their assets and waiting for the right time to strike. And with 20 draft picks over the next 7 years, they're going to have options. Orlando fans, I know losing streaks suck, but trust me, this patience will pay off. One-word verdict, commendable.
Good boy. Good.
Let's go to New York and see what the Brooklyn Nets are doing. Brooklyn, what are we doing here? The Nets were expected to move Cam Johnson, a solid 6'8" shooter who's in his prime, but instead, nothing. They could have at least jumped in on that DeAndre Hunter to Cleveland deal, which would have cleared cap space and gotten them more picks. But now, they're just floating in NBA purgatory. That said, they're in a position to pounce. They have cap flexibility, draft picks, and trade assets to land a star this summer. Keep an eye on Brooklyn if teams like Milwaukee, Phoenix, or Boston flame out in the playoffs. If Giannis, Booker, Jaylen Brown, or Zion hit the trade market, Brooklyn can make a play. But until then, it's all speculation. One-word verdict.
This report is incomplete.
We're going to the Mile High City to see what the Denver Nuggets are up to. The defending champs kept their squad intact, and honestly, that makes sense. They didn't have many tradable assets, and with a top 8 luxury tax bill, they had to either go big or do nothing. No way they were going to trade Michael Porter Jr. Would a backup center have helped? Sure. But at the end of the day, this team can absolutely win another title as is. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. One-word verdict, understandable. And finally, Minnesota. The Wolves have one of the highest payrolls in the NBA, and they're paying a $91 million luxury tax bill. They tried to land Kevin Durant. Yup, that actually happened. But they couldn't make the money work. Instead, they did nothing. Long-term, they have serious decisions to make. Is Karl Anthony Towns worth keeping? Will Naz Reid opt out? What about Nickeil Alexander-Walker? They might be forced to break up the core next season. In the end, Minnesota, like Denver, felt the sharp edge of the new CBA. They couldn't maneuver, and now they've got to figure it all out with what they've got. One-word verdict, unfortunate.
This is just a really unfortunate situation.
So there you have it, 5 teams that did nothing at the trade deadline. Some smart, some shaky, and some just plain confusing. What do you think? Should these teams have made moves? Drop your takes in the comments. And if you enjoyed this breakdown, hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss any of my takes. Finally, gotta give a massive shout out to The Ringer and Michael Pina. His work is the backbone of this analysis, and he continues to drop some of the sharpest, most insightful NBA content out there. If you're not reading his stuff, you're missing out on next-level basketball journalism. Much love to Michael Pina for his incredible breakdowns. Salute. Lock in with us next time. Until then, peace.
You already? Yeah.